Hello, this is Linda Heemer. I am Senior Director of Graduate Law Programs at Seattle University School of Law, and I welcome you to today's webinar, Compliance with a Conscience. Thank you for attending, and I look forward to having this conversation. If at any time you'd like more information about this program, I encourage you to email me at lawgraduateonline@seattleu.edu or to call me directly at 206-398-4268. Also joining us today, pardon me on the snafu, is Professor Rashelle Tanner. Rashelle, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Okay, and just briefly, it's not a long bio, wanted to let you know that she would be joining us today, not just as a professor, but as an alum, class of 1988 of Seattle University School of Law, and in this space, working in Microsoft's global anti-corruption and business conduct training programs. So we're excited to have a conversation with Rashelle today. What's on the agenda? Well, we know your time is valuable, and we want to be sure to answer some of your questions in anticipation, but again, you could always call me directly. We're going to talk about today why Seattle University's Master of Legal Studies program, and what exactly compliance with a conscience means. And then we're going to talk about the how the program is structured and delivered, and then the when, what next steps you need to take to become a part of our community and a part of this program. Finally, we will end with a Q&A, again, using the chat box for you to type in any questions you may have, and I, as the host, will hopefully do my best to have those questions answered by me or by Professor Tanner. So, let's begin. Seattle University's Master of Legal Studies is designed for people like you looking to advance your career or move into a new career in an increasingly regulated global environment. And why is that? Because compliance and professionals and risk managers are needed, and trusted experts in this field are needed. Our program focuses on compliance and risk management across a myriad of industries, but we will enable you to also specialize in areas such as healthcare, finance, business, and technology, or to help you select possible specializations as you move through and learn about this exciting area of an emerging field. So why us? And I'll tell you, we are not the only online master's program. You can Bing and see, or Google, you could see that there are hundreds of online graduate programs, and selection can be hard. And even with an online master's degree in compliance, we're not the only one. We are the only one in this region, and we provide a unique perspective because we are a law school. So what is it that we offer? We will help you learn from respected leaders in this field, both in the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle area, and throughout the country. But you will benefit from our tradition. We are a small private law school within a broader Seattle University community with a Jesuit education tradition. And we're part of an emerging and global community that is innovative. And you will be able to model compliance with a conscience. So, what does that mean? What does compliance with a conscience mean? And I'm hoping that you already have an idea in mind, and we're going to have that conversation with Professor Tanner and find out what it means to Rashelle.
All right. Well, thank you, Linda. That was a great introduction, and I just wanted to say when you were talking about why Seattle University, and I know we'll probably get to that. It just made me recall when I was in law school at law school in DC, and I made the decision to transfer and finish at Seattle University. And I know my mindset then was to be able to go to law school in the area where I planned to practice and work. And the networking during the law school was so great. In terms of how I was connected, that I ended up having a job before I even left the law school too. So yeah, that was on my mind, so I wanted to get that out there. But let me talk about what does compliance with the conscious mean. To me in particular, and how we approach it in my current position at Microsoft. So when you think about conscious, it's sort of this, sometimes it's an inner voice or a feeling about what's right and what's wrong. And when we think about compliance, I would say historically, people might have thought of a compliance officer as somebody who checks a box, who makes sure, it's like to say T's are crosses and I's are dotted, but is really there to just make sure people are following rules and they know what those rules are. And historically, we know, sometimes those rule books or codes of conduct would just get dusty on a shelf. And so the shift has been really to a more values-based approach at compliance, where we look at compliance from how it will assist the business in achieving its mission. At Microsoft, for instance, our mission is to empower everybody and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And so as we talk about compliance within our organization, it's how we are thinking about the rules, protecting people's privacy, things of that nature, in a way that supports our mission, which is to sell great products that help people do whatever technology or whatever their industry is. And so compliance with the conscious is just, again, thinking about compliance less in terms of sort of even sometimes an eye roller of all the things that we need to do or make sure we're complying with. But it's really about the approach. And the approach is more like making ethical decisions with integrity. So let me add, and I'll let you ask a question because I can go on and on. At the foundation of the culture at Microsoft is trust. So, and we have a saying, our slogan of Microsoft runs on trust, from our Office of Legal Compliance program. And so, again, thinking about the conscious, why are we complying? Are we complying because it's our job? Why do we want people, why do we want trustworthy organizations? It's because they've got our data, that sort of thing. So when we think about compliance roles, I like to think of them as the really guardians of the organization, guardians of corporations. And so it's with that mindset that, we want, the compliance professionals to approach their jobs as we, continue on this more and more regulatory kind of environment that we're going to be going into with, continued advancements and artificial intelligence and similar types of technologies. So I'll let you ask a question.
Thank you, Rashelle. One thing that presses on me again is we've all heard the term siloed, and oftentimes we think of the compliance division and the legal division and HR. But if someone were to come to you and say, well, I'm in X division at Microsoft, I don't have to worry about compliance, what would you say to them?
Well, first I'd say they probably never say that because if they're paying attention, because we make sure that they know that they do have to think about compliance from the very, very start, which is key. That being said, I get the question. And again, that is, I would say, it's probably still the way some people think about compliance. In fact, I know it is. That it is sort of a separate function, but more and more it's we're integrating it into the business. Instead of thinking about, let me think of an example. if we were going to, okay, so I'll take a stab at making up some technological thing. So I'm going to come up with some new app that's going to do X, Y, and Z. I could create it and build it and spend time on it, and it's got all the bells and whistles. And then at the end, I could make sure it's got the right privacy components to it or security features. And then I might realize, oh, I've got to go undo something way at the beginning, or who knows what would happen. So instead of thinking about compliance at the end, it's sort of building things, building your departments, building your processes, building your business policies and your business rhythms with compliance in mind. So it's not a separate thing. It's just integrated into the business. So again, oh, sorry. It's almost like thinking about business more, doing business with a conscience. You know, it's almost like not, if we get to a place where it doesn't necessarily have to have a hugely distinctive separate call out in every single function of the business, that would be a win.
Well, that's a great example, Rashelle, and thank you. So instead of it being, okay, we've made our decisions at a business level, we've gotten through the production cycle of some sort, now send it off to compliance for them to check the box and do whatever internal thing they need. It's compliance has a seat at the strategic table, and it's at the ideation phase all the way through an implementation.
Absolutely, and I think that's absolutely critical now, again, especially as we keep moving into the future. I mean, we've seen the congressional hearings. We see those folks sitting at the table. Nobody wants their corporation to be on the receiving end of that. Nobody wants their corporation to be, you know, part of a PR nightmare or have, worse, even harmed others. So, so the thinking is, yeah, to well, you'll see more I don't know if I've said it already, but chief compliance officers at corporations, so that, you know, the importance of compliance now as it fits into other legal components or business functions continues to be heightened. And I think when there's plenty of examples, I'm not going to name corporation names, but when you look at what's happened, the need is evident, and it's evident by the corporations. I go to enough compliance seminars and conferences, and you know, compliance is top of mind. How to shift and embed more into corporations.
And do you see, among both in your current company as well as in the broader industry, a sense that this compliance is part of the mindset and the strategic partnership within the organization, that they're recognizing that there is a value to it?
I would say more and more. I can speak on behalf of my current and former company. So at Microsoft, certainly, you know, our chief legal officer, excuse me, our chief compliance officer is also our president. So we definitely have our tone at the top. And we've been working for the last couple of years on really influencing the workforce, and I would say focusing on a speak up culture, trying to get employees to know, to feel safe to raise concerns. And so based on that, I don't know that Microsoft's particularly unique, but in the sense that, again, at the different seminars, we are all kind of hearing sort of what's needed now, is being able to bake into the business, so the mindset of integrity, but also to create this open environment where people feel free and that they should, in fact, ask questions or raise concerns.
I heard a few words that resonated with me. One, that compliance is baked into an organization. That's a great visual, but also that the responsibility for compliance may be modeled through the leadership at the top, but then it comes up organically through every individual, where you say this speak up and speak out culture that gives a sense of everyone is accountable and has an ownership interest in this sense of compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not, tone at the top is super important, but it's got to go throughout the organization. And so um, an area of focus again for other organizations, and specifically I can talk about Microsoft. Um, we have what's called integrity skills. And so some people think of integrity as either you're born with it or you're not. And we believe integrity is something that can be practiced. So for instance, when you think about compliance and we're talking about people, right? Are they complying with the rules? Are they doing the safety checks? The spectrum of things that we need humans to do to comply and meet regulatory requirements or just policies and procedures, laws, things of that nature. Typically, when you think about human nature, and I've heard this, I didn't invent this, I picked this up at some conference way back, but, there's probably three groups of people. There's uber rule followers, people who want to know what the rules are. And you can speak to them in a certain way. You tell them what the rules are, and they're going to make sure they're following them and know them, and they'll recite them and keep them in their back pocket or whatever. And then you've got a big group of people that a lot of us fit in, which is, we're trying to do our jobs. We generally know what the rules are, sort of. We want to know what they are, and kind of we're testing the culture out to see, well, is this how we do it or not? And that's your big audience that you want to reach. And then you've got folks that might come with the intent to never comply. And that's a harder group to reach, and you might not reach them. You might have to get them in different ways through detection and things of that nature. But all that's to say, each of us, when we think about the organization, you've got lawyers, you've got finance people, you've got auditors, you've got a whole gamut of compliance personnel doing different functions, and their job is to catch things in some respect, or to see things that maybe others aren't paying attention to. And so that's where you go back to the integrity skills. Like, what is it about our subconscious or our bias, or when we're working with this person, we might not see something, or with this group, that colors how we look at compliance. And so when you think about the compliance, I like to, again, call them guardians. Nowadays, it's not just enough to care, but you also need to be sort of self-aware. There's a lot of neuroscience around blind spots and things of that nature that really make it a fascinating role to be in nowadays, because there's elements of human nature. Again, it depends on which compliance function, but elements of human nature, as well as, just a huge commitment to an organization and its mission, and putting those together in the with conscious compliance. It's a way to, I'd like to say, kind of change the culture or improve the culture or influence the culture, depending on which culture you're in. But back to, I think, what your original question was a few minutes ago, this particular role is just more and more important and will continue to be so.
And segueing to that, you took a journey that, as you referenced, led you to Seattle University School of Law and led you to back to this region. What would you like to say to a prospective student about why this program and why our law school in particular?
Okay, well, and I need to correct you, because earlier you said 1988 is when I graduated.
Oh my, sorry, I made you 10.
Don't tack on another 10 years. But it was 98, as the deck said. But in any event, so at Seattle University, my experience was, and continues actually to be, it's a school that really cares about its students. When I was transferring, I had a few options, and it was a no-brainer to go to Seattle University, just from the way I communicated with people, the information that they provided. It was just a totally different experience where I felt I'd be taken care of. Coming back to Seattle also was very fortuitous in a lot of ways, because all of the industries that have been coming here. So when I was in law school, I did want to work for a firm first, and I was able to, from being in the Seattle area, network, understand what was going on, be connected. There's corporations that were connected to the law school. That really gave me a lot of different opportunities for what my career would be next and that sort of thing. I mean, I still had to figure it out and do the work, but there was no shortage of opportunities or people reaching out to me with opportunities, or opportunities in the sense of, things that I should be checking out, or people I should be meeting, or seminars I should go to, that sort of thing. Currently, Seattle is just amazing to me in so many ways. But again, thinking about it from the industries that are here, and the potential, I guess, influence that the law school could have on the corporations and vice versa, in terms of speakers, people that can come and work with our students. I think about there's a roundtable at the law school. I think I might have mentioned it to you before, Linda. It's just a compliance and ethics group that gets together, and from that and at other kind of similar groups around the Seattle area, I've worked and met and networked with people from other organizations like T-Mobile, Starbucks, Vulcan, Amazon, Boeing, Costco, all of them really. And they too, like me, we really care about compliance, so much so that we share what we're doing at our organizations. Our organizations might compete on different levels, but certainly not in the compliance space. In fact, we feel like if we all are compliant, then everything else, we're on equal playing field, and then we can compete the right way. But I guess all that's to say, the law school itself is my experience has been, it's been a very appropriately nurturing law school with a lot of great opportunities. I certainly have had so many as a consequence, but also just this region right now, this environment is really prime for education, a master's in legal compliance with a lot of variety and options to work in, University of Washington Hospital. I mean, there's everything is here. Everything is here.
Thank you, Rashelle.
You're welcome.
I'd like to move on. And again, some of the words I hear and what we try to espouse and hope resonates with you as an attendee to this webinar is that there's leadership opportunities, there's innovative opportunities, there's a chance to be creative, to help motivate a culture, whether you're in an entry-level position or whether you're have a seat at the leadership table. It's about inspiring. It's not just about knowing the rules, which you do gain that knowledge in a law school, you do gain the skills, but it's also about emphasizing the values that you will model. And that's where we think compliance with a conscience really differentiates our region and our program in particular. So I'd like to just run over a few of our program details about how we deliver it. First, we make a promise to you and a commitment to you that at the end of this program, you will have certain knowledge, skills, and values. And the goals are really what we emphasize and read today, another aspect of compliance with a conscience. You will be able to perform critical non-attorney roles ethically and with cultural competency. What Rashelle has described to you is a culture of values-based compliance that transcends just this region. Microsoft has over 130,000 employees worldwide, and they have to reach all of them with a common sense of purpose and value, regardless of culture, regardless of national origin. And this is something that we espouse with many of our countries, with many of our companies rather in the region, as well as our institution. So the skills you would gain in coming to this program, again, focus on compliance and risk management, but gives that added value of being able to model the role as it's evolving and the role as guardian. I love that term that Rashelle uses for this field. And the details of the program, it's fully online. So even if you do not live in this region, you can still benefit from this community and this experience fully online and part-time. So you can continue working, you can continue with the other obligations and have that work-life study balance. It's a 30-credit degree earned over 2 years, over 3 terms per year. And the terms are about 14 weeks in length with a nice break in between each term. You have 6 required courses and then approximately 5 elective courses, and it ends with a capstone. These courses are what we call as asynchronous, meaning you don't have to be online at a particular specific time. And you can finish your work on a schedule because everything requires that you follow a certain level of attendance, but it does allow for flexibility based upon your other professional and personal obligations. The tuition is $1,200 per credit, and there are some additional fees that we could discuss one-on-one. And again, personal conversations at any time to discuss opportunities for financing your education and the return on your educational investment. But really, we've designed this in phases for you to learn and build and scaffold your learning, but to take what you're learning in the classroom immediately, see its relevance in your current work environment while you are preparing to earn your degree. And we have 4 phases. We give you the foundation in legal analysis and in understanding the unique nature of the compliance arena and how it fits within our legal system. Then you go into your operations phase. Then you can move into specialization, and finally it's action. You will demonstrate to us and to your colleagues that you have achieved the outcomes, and you will have a project that you could take and use in a portfolio for further employment or advancement within your current career. So, what's next? We'd like you to apply. We can answer your questions and we will respond promptly to your application. Our admissions committee meets regularly on a rolling basis. And then you would have the opportunity to enroll and begin your journey with us. Some upcoming dates for you to think about. Our deadline is August 12th for applicants for our class to start September 9th. But again, we are selective and we try to keep our classes small and really model the boutique service model that Seattle University is built upon. So I would encourage you not to wait too long. I'm going to skip over this. The contact information is available through our website. And again, when you dial this number, you will be speaking to me, the Senior Director. And I look forward to hearing from you. We do have an opportunity for some questions and answers if you'd like to speak with Rashelle. And we do have a question from Michael. Thank you. Rashelle, Michael asks, as regulatory compliance becomes more important and pervasive throughout organizations, have you seen an increase in varied professional and/or academic backgrounds in this field? And if so, what types of backgrounds are you seeing?
Okay, that's a good question. I think I know. So I work, because I work at Microsoft, there's a lot of tech. So there's certainly engineers. We actually have someone who's been working on a proactive risk management algorithm. I like to think of it as Minority Report. It's meant to predict where the next compliance risk could come from. And so there's really the gamut. Let me just take 30 seconds to tell you what I do. I produce a show that feels like a Netflix drama. It's compliance based. I make it suspenseful, and it's really our annual standards of business conduct course. But I work with a Hollywood producer and deliver these episodes that really have the same characters. We're on season 3, and employees are waiting for their next compliance course to see what's going to happen. But I just say that because I would have never, I'm a lawyer by trade, but now I'm a writer, which I actually prefer a little bit more. Don't tell anybody. And so there are, I think I think the backgrounds are varied and the options are, I'm not going to say limitless, but they are also varied as we kind of continue to go and try to get more innovative as we really understand what it takes for people to make the right decisions.
And Rashelle, if you're having a cup of coffee with Michael, of course it'd be Starbucks because we're in Seattle, and he said, well, should I get a law degree, or do you think a master in legal studies would help me in this field? What would you say to him?
I'd say what I'd say to everybody who asks, should they get the law degree? If you don't plan on practicing and being a lawyer, I wouldn't do it. It's a lot of work. It kind of takes over your life. But I've said that several times. So just to answer, that's how I would answer. And over a cup of coffee, I would grill somebody about how much do they really want to be a lawyer before for going to law school. A master of legal, yeah, I think that a master of legal studies gives you the education level where in any corporation you can walk in and you've already got that credentials. They know those credentials. Excuse me. They know you've reached a certain level of learning. So and the fact that you can get it while you're continuing, and I don't. Getting, because it's online, you can also be getting similar experience at the same time. I think it's a win-win. I would do it if I did not want to be a lawyer and I was interested in the compliance field. This seems like the right choice to make, again, because you've got the credentials and the experience for really what the job's going to be. So that's how I'd say it.
Yeah, I think now I have some more questions too. And I could share without obviously sharing names, respecting the privacy. But when I'm talking to prospective students, either telephonically in virtual meetings or face to face, that's what I do hear this question often. What background do I need? And I say one of the goals is to be able to enhance or add to your toolkit, your book of knowledge you already have. And some of the backgrounds I see from prospective students is they were trained as engineers and went to work in one of our manufacturing industries in the area, and they found themselves more and more working with contracts and seeing that there was a gap in knowledge. I've seen people who are coming out of data analytics or healthcare fields, and they found and they're drawn to the risk assessment side or middle management roles, and they see when they're speaking to general counsel or they're looking at the broader needs of their company, that the gap in knowledge and understanding the law or policy creates really a missed opportunity. And even some employers are reaching out to us and saying, wow, we don't need more lawyers in our industry, but we sure need people who understand the law. And that's, if I can, our last webinar on April 16th was this program, and the theme was think like a lawyer without being one. And that's another one of the things that we think this program allows, to be able to see through the lens of the law and solve problems that way.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think, if you think traditional roles, you'd think historically, maybe someone with HR background, people who generally understand certain laws and that nature. But it really is a case now where if you're an expert expert might be a strong word, but if you've got experience in a particular industry, going back to what we talked about earlier about being a business partner. So if you bring compliance to business know-how of a particular area, then you're going to be better at compliance because you've got the experience being X, Y, or Z, whatever the industry is. And so I would think of, it's really hard for me to right now think of a background that wouldn't be complemented by a master's of legals degree in being able to be a well-rounded compliance professional. Again, thinking about your industry. When I think about where I am today, it certainly wasn't a journey that I planned, but I can look back and think of the different experience, uh, levels at different times in my life that I received in a particular area or industry that now informs what I do today. So it's about, really paying attention to what you have been doing and leveraging that to further, your career in
Absolutely.
compliance. Yeah.
And I know, we're talking compliance too, but this degree also looks at risk management. And we know as trained, I also as a trained lawyer, we tend to be risk adverse. And in my practice in representing corporations, oftentimes I would hear from the leadership, why can't we get a lawyer that understands our business or our industry? And that was a frustration. And I could see how this kind of role could help bridge that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I first left the law firm and I started working in-house as a general counsel, I was initially very risk adverse. No, can't do that. No, 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 no. Because as an outside lawyer, that's what you're trained to do, not have any risk. Businesses can't operate without risk. So to your point, exactly, if you can get into an organization and understand how business runs, then, it's really a win-win. I think of compliance as proactive risk management. I used to think about that because I was a general counsel. I was dealing with issues on the back end, risk management sort of after the fact, or, oh, we've got this issue, let's manage that risk. Compliance, I think, takes a real early look and can kind of see down the road, how can we set things up and have processes in place so that we can really mitigate these risks before they even become a real issue. And so you mentioned something about contracts before. At my former position as well, I had a person who used to do procurement who then joined my team and started reviewing contracts and really was real adept at it. Somebody was really into details. So he had no law degree at all, but he was our senior contracts manager for the whole organization, after some years, and never a law degree, but I trusted him, more than, well, actually more than, our other legal staff to well, because he was thorough. So it's I mean, that's another thing with any job, with any discipline, with anything you bring, anything that presents itself, bringing your full self to it is also always going to be key to making a difference.
And Rashelle, that's actually a great segue to another question that has come in from Linda. She does acknowledge that the JD, that's a Juris Doctorate, a law degree, gives a certain level of authority. And she asked, does the MLS offer a similar level which would allow an employee to provide the compliance expertise the organization needs?
You mean on the same equivalent as being a lawyer?
Or does it, yeah, I would.
I can answer that. I just want to make sure I understood the question.
Well, let's take the best stab at it.
Okay. Yes, I think that, again, the court, lawyers traditionally I know historically I had to keep my lawyer card in my back pocket for when I needed to pull it out. If somebody just wouldn't, whatever, I'm a lawyer, that sort of thing. In organizations now, I don't know that it's so much like that. I think people, well, actually, again, I can't really speak for all organizations. I can't, because I'm kind of focused on my thing, I can't totally speak for my current organization, except to say that I think there is this mindset we're all kind of back to what I was saying about guardians. We're all sort of there for the greater good, to have a compliant organization. So if you're at the right company and the right corporation, it's your title and rank doesn't matter. That whole "I'm a lawyer" thing is needed, for very specific reasons and very specific, if you're, depending on what phase you are, if it's,
Sure.
part of the investigation and you've got to make some conclusions and you've got to write to the SEC, or you've got to respond to the DOJ and you've got to work with outside counsel and it's a legal issue, yes. But there's an ocean of things that aren't like that a respected compliance person, which certainly a master's in anything garners respect, but a master's in legal studies as well, I think would be, I don't see that being a challenge. It's not going to be treated the same as a lawyer, but that's because lawyers are looked at for very specific
Sure.
reasons.
Yeah, and that's one of the things to look at. I don't see a master's as inferior to a JD. Certainly, if you're competing or there's a particular job description that has a preference for a Juris Doctorate, there is a disadvantage there. And a Juris Doctorate is traditionally around 90 credits rather than 30. But we understand as a law school what we are trying to enhance. We are not, again, as you said, Rashelle, if you want to practice law, if you want to get that mindset and have that additional education and take the LSAT entrance exam and then sit for a bar exam, that's the route you want to take. But again, we see the need now in industry and the demand, and we see the future opportunities for what I refer to as quasi-legal fields. And I equate it similarly to in the healthcare field. You have medical doctors, then you have nurse practitioners, and the broader spectrum of people who serve in these allied careers. And I think that's the opportunity here. Not to hold yourself out as having a law degree, but you're learning in a law school from legal professionals how to understand law and policy from a business perspective that adds value to your organization and serves the industry and serves your customer base. And as part of our mission, serves a broader society. And Elizabeth has just asked me to display the contact information on the slide, and I will do that. I don't believe there's any other questions at this time, and I do appreciate, again, the time factor involved. Rashelle, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I would just like to say, well, one, thank you for inviting me. This has been nice to talk about my favorite law school. But I guess I just want to encourage people, and I do this at most of my conferences and seminars, to kind of think bravely and innovatively and outside the box about your career, about compliance. I think a lot of where we are today in compliance, it being more of a focal in organizations, and people understanding how to integrate it versus, as we talked about before, have it as a tack on. That's because people think about it. I think of compliance. I think of what would happen if you didn't have it. When you think about corruption, no matter where it is or what the form is, a lot of it's about little decisions that people are making that are wrong. That are, and so I guess I can't say how important it is for us to keep thinking about this as we shape really kind of our culture of our organization and even of our world. So that's my big long kind of speech, but the idea is really to just kind of think about really this beyond sort of this compliance word, and really appreciate sort of the bigger ranging effect that kind of entering in this field could have and the difference it can make for good.
Absolutely. And the impact for good.
Yeah.
I love that, Rashelle. And there was one question that I did miss, and we look at it almost from a little different perspective. One of our participants today has earned a JD, but is now looking at a program like this to move into this compliance space. And how would you advise someone who's already attained a law degree to enter into this compliance field, or maybe gain additional educational knowledge?
Yeah, I would recommend just enter boldly. I'm not one to, you already have a JD, so that's great. Compliance, being specialized in the compliance is going to give you even more advantages. I don't know what ultimately it is you want to do, but if you have a sense, then you know what path to take and what will get you there. But yeah, the more credentials never hurt. Again, especially if you're learning things that go towards what you ultimately believe you're here to do.
Thank you, Rashelle. And I would encourage, if you do have follow-up questions that you didn't have time to ask or weren't comfortable asking in this space, you have my contact information. Please feel free to call or email me, and let's have a conversation. Want to make sure that this program is the right fit for you, and I do value your time. So, Professor Tanner, Rashelle, thank you so much. We know you're busy. Thank you for what you do at Microsoft and for what you do for Seattle University School of Law. I learned a lot today, and I look forward to working with you and inviting our next fall class and welcoming these eventual graduates as colleagues in our field.
Thank you, Linda. Me as well.
Thank you. Be well, and the webinar is now ending.
Thank you.